A sense of humour is a distinct advantage in many situations. One of the naughtiest moments was when a 9-year-old boy with epilepsy and associated problems stood at the top of the stone staircase and urinated on the milling throng below, adjusting his aim so that no one could escape. Sally grabbed him by the hand and took him protesting loudly down the corridor to the toilet, telling him off in her very fluent Mandarin. I beat a hasty retreat with my hand over my mouth to hide my expression and stifle my laughter. The people, though, were not amused. They couldn't change their clothes until bath day, the following Monday. Another example where my warped sense of humour came to my rescue was when I was called to meet a uniformed contingent who had arrived by coach to present a handsome donation to the centre. I was unexpectedly waylaid when returning to Sally's flat for a shower and to cool off after working all morning in a very dusty old building. I was taken in my scruffy jeans and t-shirt to a conference room where the visitors were neatly arranged around the edges of the room, politely sipping Chinese tea and eating nibbles, as I patiently waited for the arrival of yours truly to give the speech of acceptance. How the Chinese love these prolonged formal occasions. Every detail is faithfully recorded for posterity, whoever he is, by Polaroid, video and TV cameras. I was so grateful for my faithful interpreter at my elbow, especially as I couldn't see a thing. The moment I entered the room, my glasses steamed up, and despite my many attempts at cleaning them, stayed that way for the duration of the occasion. It had to be the longest 1.5 hours of my life. Chapter 5. Exploring moments. If that was one of the most embarrassing moments, the most hilarious had to be when Sally and I spent 5 days and 3 nights on a Yangtze riverboat, sharing a 6-berth cabin with 11 workmen plus all their worldly possessions. We were just settling down to enjoy a leisurely cruise up the river, appreciating the sights of the ever-changing terrain as we headed for the famous Three Gorges, when we were joined by the men. 2 men climbed into each of the remaining 4 beds, and the other 3 men arranged themselves uncomfortably over the baggage, which occupied every inch of available floor space. They must have been very tired, as most of them fell asleep immediately, even though it was mid-afternoon. We soon discovered that we were not alone in having excess company. Being a national holiday, every available nook and cranny on board seemed to have a body in it. Our men proved to be very affable and friendly. They were even protective of Sally and me. If any of their visiting colleagues sat on our beds or blew cigarette smoke in our direction, they were soundly told off. Sally could converse in Putongua with one of the men. The others were confined to their local dialect. We even taught them a card game or 2. This lack of privacy and body space was fast becoming a less irritating habit as we got used to it. The boat trip had been preceded by a 2-hour journey by train, which was so crowded that I could have fallen asleep standing up and I wouldn't have moved from the vertical position. There would even have been a convenient shoulder to rest my head on had I been so inclined. This trip was followed by an interesting 2-day stay in Chongqing and a 2-night and 3-day return journey on a hard sleeper train. After spending 5 out of 7 nights sleeping in our clothes, home, shower and bed never seemed so welcome or luxurious. Eating out was an interesting gastronomical experience, especially when we were transported to the chosen restaurant on the back of motorbikes. We elected to walk home after dinner after our hosts and drivers had had a few beers. Our staple diet was chiefly rice and vegetables, with sometimes a little meat, mostly chicken or the Chinese favourite, pork fat. We had no fridge, so our supplies were purchased daily at the nearby market. It was great to mingle with the local people on a daily basis. Sally and I were the only foreigners in the township, and since privacy is not something that the Chinese do, our movements and lives were an open book. This was totally tolerable because it was reciprocated by the openness, friendliness and helpfulness of everyone we met, from shopkeepers to taxi drivers to colleagues at work. Having mentioned 3 of the modes of transport that we used reminds me of some of the others: a motorised rickshaw, a cable car, and that unforgettable drive from the airport. However, the most exhilarating ride had to be the local country bus. Occasionally we had to take to the farm tracks if there happened to be a roadblock ahead checking drivers' licenses. Between rubbing my bruised head and retaining my breakfast, I managed to see a little of the passing countryside, an experience not to be missed. One which I enjoyed, or should that be endured, every time I went into the city and on Sundays to church. Most of our getting about had to be on foot, especially when we were invited for a meal at the home of any of the Christian folk, as they tend to live in houses in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by paddy fields. I think my pleasing weight loss can be attributed to these excursions, possibly because of the added anxiety factor. Slipping off the hedge of an extremely narrow path into a definitely not so inviting paddy field, just waiting to catch the unwary. How the local people managed to cycle these paths I'll never know. However, the effort was always worth it for the warm welcome received. If you'd like to continue with me on my wanderings, please give it a thumbs up and press the subscribe button.